Welcome to Alabama Short Stories, when you're a little behind on your Alabama history. I'm your host, Sean Wright. In the late 1800s, Birmingham grew fast. Industrialists such as Sloss, DeBardeleben, Aldrich, Pratt, and Woodward came to Jones Valley to take advantage of the abundance of iron ore, limestone, and coal in the area needed to make steel. Mines dotted Red Mountain, and blast furnaces sprang up around the city, employing many workers. This new industry made the industrialists wealthy men, and wealthy men need to spend their money on mansions, toys, and in the case of one man, a baseball team. Say what you want about when baseball started, the story is all over the place. The most popular and debunked story goes that Abner Doubleday invented baseball in 1839 at Cooperstown, New York. Others tell of a baseball-like game going back as far as the mid-1700s. Another story claims that baseball came from England. I'm not too interested in when baseball started for this short story, and I'm certainly not going to argue that America's pastime was created in England. What we can all agree is that Major League Baseball started in 1876. Soon after, minor league baseball teams popped up around the country. Leagues were formed and teams were founded in rival towns. In 1885, the Southern League was created to field minor league teams in the South. Teams were formed in Atlanta, Augusta, Chattanooga, Columbus, Memphis, Nashville, and Macon. Birmingham would have a team, the Coal Barons. Now, anyone who's watched the football teams and leagues fold in Birmingham will attest, it's hard enough to keep your team on the field, much less having to deal with the league folding around you. These earlier years of baseball in Birmingham were touch and go as the team and league looked for solid ground to grow on. Birmingham's team would go through several names such as the Ironmakers, the Maroons, the Grays, the Blues, the Bluebirds, and the Reds. In 1901, the team was purchased by James McQueen, an executive with the Sloss Sheffield Steel and Iron Company, who changed the name to the Barons, a nod to the original team name Coal Barons. James McQueen is not a name that is talked about in Birmingham lore, but he did make his mark on the city as a member of the Birmingham Commercial Club. He served on the Vulcan Committee, which commissioned the statue for the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. In 1910, McQueen sold the Barons to Rick Woodward, but remained a minority owner in the team. Woodward was the grandson of Birmingham industrialist Stimson Harvey Woodward and son of Joseph Woodward. The two elder Woodwards started Woodward Iron Company in 1881 and grew it into one of the nation's largest pig iron producers. Rick Woodward attended Sewanee and MIT before returning to Birmingham and joining the family business. In 1904, he married Annie Jemison, daughter of Birmingham businessman Robert Jemison Sr. 1910 was a good year for Woodward. He purchased the Barons early in the year and ended it as the president of Woodward Iron Company. But his greatest achievement may have been building a stadium for the Barons to call home. He named it for himself using his nickname. Rickwood Field was born. His goal was to create the finest minor league ballpark ever, a ballpark that would be worthy of the fastest growing city in the nation at the time. Land was purchased in West End along the edge of Village Creek, and construction started. Woodward turned to Connie Mack, former player, current manager, and future Hall of Famer. He was manager of the Philadelphia Phillies at the time and would win the World Series of 1910, 1911, and 1913. He was arguably the top manager in the game then, but his role as manager of the Phillies was his only source of income. Taking on this consulting job was a bonus for Mack. Rickwood Field was modeled after Forbes Field, home of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Rickwood was the first minor league stadium constructed of steel and concrete, featuring a covered grandstand surrounding the infield. The right field stand extends along the foul line and then behind right field. There were uncovered bleachers along left field just past third base, which eventually were covered. Rickwood was a difficult place for home run hitters. It was more than 500 feet to straightaway center field, 470 feet down the left field line, and 335 to right field. It was difficult unless you were a left-handed power hitter. Rickwood Field was a significant step up for the former Coal Barons players. Since 1887, they had been playing at Slag Pile Field. I don't think I need to explain the conditions. The name says it all. Opening day was August 18, 1910, and merchants throughout Birmingham closed for business to attend the game. A record-breaking crowd saw the home team defeat the Montgomery Climbers by a score of 3-2. Rickwood Field opened its gates 114 years ago, making it the oldest professional baseball park in the United States. It's 2 years older than Boston's Fenway Park, which opened in 1912, and 4 years older than Chicago's Wrigley Field in 1914. Professional baseball was growing in Birmingham, but other teams were playing in the city. The Industrial League featured company-sponsored teams made up of their employees. These baseball games became a source of entertainment for workers and created a rivalry among companies that went beyond business. Sometimes a worker would be hired based on their baseball talent more than their work skills. And in the South, company teams were segregated, and when the term Industrial League is used, most people are referring to the black company teams. These amateur teams would play in front of crowds rivaling the Barons' attendance. The powerhouse team at the time was from American Cast Iron Pipe Company, better known as the SIPCO. Players from the team became the backbone of the Birmingham Black Barons. In 1919, the Birmingham Stars played baseball in the newly formed Negro Southern League. Frank Perdue bought the team the next year and renamed them the Black Barons as a nod to the White Barons. The team was sold again in 1923 and moved to the Negro National League. The Black Barons would move back and forth between the leagues in the coming decades and pause briefly during the Depression. They returned to the National League in 1940. The Black Barons fielded great players, future Hall of Famers, and one Country Music Hall of Famer. Some names included Satchel Paige, Mule Suttles, Willie Foster, Willie Wells, Goose Tatum, and Piper Davis. Goose Tatum and Piper Davis played for both the Black Barons and the Harlem Globetrotters basketball teams, and one future country singer and member of the Grand Ole Opry, Charlie Pride. Pride and another player, Jess Mitchell, were sent to the Black Barons from the Louisville Clippers in exchange for a team bus. Jesse and I may have the distinction of being the only players in history to be traded for a used motor vehicle, Pride said in his 1994 autobiography. Out of all the players who played in the Birmingham Industrial League and the Birmingham Black Barons, one stood out over all the rest. On April 15, 1947, Jackie Robinson stepped onto Ebbets Field as a Brooklyn Dodger. It was the day segregation ended in Major League Baseball. When the news broke, Cat Mays told his son Willie, a 15-year-old baseball phenom, "Now you have a chance, son." William Howard Mays Jr. was born on May 6, 1931 in Westfield, Alabama, the son of William Sr., 19 years old, and Annie Satterwhite, 16. They never married. Willie, as he was known, was raised by his Aunt Sarah, sister of Annie, and by his father, Cat. From an early age, Cat was throwing the ball to Willie, teaching him the game of baseball. He knew that if Willie could learn and excel at the game, he could stay out of the mills and the mines. In high school, baseball was his third sport. He excelled at football and basketball, but there was no easy path forward in either of those sports. The three major sports leagues would not be segregated for long, but football and basketball took their athletes from the college ranks. Even though he received scholarship offers, college did not appeal to Mays. He could always make money in baseball. Players in the Industrial Leagues and Negro Leagues were all paid, and he was making it at an early age. Mays tried to get a real job washing dishes at Britling's cafeterias, and he lasted one day. He wanted to leave early to get to a baseball game, so he quit before they could fire him. Cat was fine with him leaving Britling's, and because he wanted to keep him out of the mines and mills, told him, "Okay, you play baseball, and I'll make sure you eat." When he was 14, his father would take him to Industrial League games, and Willie would play if the team was shorthanded. Teams would make money by charging a fee or passing a hat, and Willie would share the proceeds. The following year, he joined the TCI wire mill team as a regular player. All his teammates were older, but one stood out, his 36-year-old father, Cat Mays. Cat was still strong but past his prime, and his much younger son was catching up to him quickly. During the final game of the year, Willie caught up with a fly ball that his father could not catch, even though Cat called for it. Willie caught it on his shoelaces. Not a word was said between father and son. The torch had been passed. Willie Mays played baseball for Fairfield High School, but he also played for pay for various teams under assumed names. If the school found out, he'd not be able to play high school ball. Early in 1948, the Black Barons were in Chattanooga for a game. Piper Davis, the Black Barons player-coach, bumped into Mays in the hotel. He was playing for money in Chattanooga and didn't care if the school found out. Piper ran into Mays the following weekend in Atlanta. Seeing that Mays was going to play ball even though he might get kicked off his high school team, Piper decided to give him a tryout. He talked through his concerns about high school eligibility with Cat. "I don't care," said Cat. "If he wants to play, that's up to him." Mays came to his first game, a doubleheader against the Cleveland Buckeyes on July 4th. He sat through the first game but was started in left field for Game 2 over the outcries of his much older teammates. Mays faced pitcher Chet Brewer, who joined the league 6 years before Mays was born. Willie hit 2 singles. After the game, Davis hired Mays and offered him $250 per month. This was big news around the school, and it came to the attention of Principal E.J. Oliver. A meeting was called with Cat and Aunt Sarah. Oliver wanted to ensure that Mays was serious about earning his diploma, and agreement was reached. Mays would only be allowed to play home games until he graduated from high school in exchange for Mays playing football for the school. You see, football is a big revenue sport, and Principal Oliver did not want his star athlete missing when he could be filling up the stands with paying supporters. Now that everyone was happy, the restrictions on road travel would soon be overlooked. Over the next 3 seasons, Willie Mays became a superstar. Rickwood Field was so large that it allowed Mays to show his athleticism and skill. Everyone wanted to see Mays play, including several major league teams. Willie Mays left Birmingham for the New York Giants, who signed him in June 1950. The day that Jackie Robinson stepped onto the field as a Brooklyn Dodger was the end of segregation in Major League Baseball. It also ended the Negro Leagues. The Negro National League played one more season in 1948 before ending operations. Now that black athletes could play at the top of their game, the most talented players would be moving out of the Negro Leagues. The Negro American League, which the Black Barons were a part of, continued as a minor league until it disbanded in 1962. In 1961, the Birmingham Barrons would move, and Rickwood Field would be vacant for the first time in half a century. The Southern League was founded 2 years later, and the Barons took to the field, but only lasted 2 years. In 1967, Kansas City A's owner Charlie Finley started a minor league team called the Birmingham A's, with uniforms featuring the parent club's distinct yellow and green uniforms. Charlie Finley toyed with moving the A's to Birmingham and other cities before relocating them to Oakland. As a farm team, Birmingham saw some of baseball's greatest players at Rickwood Field, such as Catfish Hunter, Reggie Jackson, Raleigh Fingers, and Vida Blue. Again, the A's moved, and it would be another 5 years before Art Clarkson brought the Barons back. But again, it would be short-lived. In 1988, the Barons moved to the Hoover Metropolitan Stadium, a modern stadium in the suburbs of Birmingham where fans could see stars such as Frank Thomas, Robin Ventura, Bo Jackson, and manager Terry Francona work their way to the majors. It would also host the spectacle of Michael Jordan's switch from basketball to baseball. It looked like the end was near for Rickwood Field, but people had other ideas. Seeing the value in preserving Rickwood, the Friends of Rickwood Field was founded in 1992 to be stewards of the field. It serves as a museum and historical site and hosts games and events. Today, the Barons play at Regions Field. The field was the first project built in what is now Parkside in a revitalized Midtown Birmingham. On the other side of the left field fence at Regions Field is the Negro Southern League Museum, built to celebrate the men whose story we've told in this episode. At 114 years old, Rickwood Field continues to host Birmingham High School baseball games and is the home field for the Miles College Bears. The movies Jackie Robinson and Ty Cobb were both filmed at the field, but its most prominent event is yet to come. Major League Baseball announced that on June 20th, 2024, a game between the St. Louis Cardinals and Willie Mays' San Francisco Giants would be played as a salute to the Negro Leagues and in observance of Juneteenth. Organizers hope to be able to honor the last 2 surviving members of the 1948 Birmingham Black Barons, Willie Mays and Reverend Bill Greason, at the game. When hearing about the game at Rickwood, Willie Mays said, "I can't believe it. I never thought I'd see in my lifetime a Major League Baseball game being played on the very field where I played baseball as a teenager. It has been 75 years since I played for the Birmingham Black Barons at Rickwood Field, and to learn that my Giants and the Cardinals will play a game there and honor the legacy of the Negro Leagues and all those who came before them is really emotional for me. We cannot forget what got us here, and that was the Negro Leagues for so many of us." Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alabama Short Stories Podcast. I'm happy to announce that Volume 2 of the Alabama Short Stories book is now available and features stories from Seasons 4 through 6. You can purchase it and Volume 1 online at Amazon.com and other online retailers. If you'd like to support your local bookstore, you can purchase it through bookshop.org, where your purchases will help financially support independent bookstores. You can find links in the show notes and on the website. See you next time at Alabama Short Stories.